Hey, I just want to introduce everybody to Matt Kern. He's with Super Inspections, and today we're going to be talking about inspections, but we're also going to be talking about, hey, if you're getting a new house, do you need an inspection when you get a new house? Since the builder's going to do a walkthrough, do you still need to have an inspector come in and also, have it inspected? So, Matt, why don't you just maybe introduce yourself a little bit more than I just did, and then I'll start asking you some questions.
All right, Greg, sounds good. Well, hey, everybody, I'm Matt Kern, and I'm a marketing and sales representative for Super Inspector. We're based out of Denton, Texas. Matter of fact, we got a nice little office right there on the square. So if you've not been to Denton in a long time, it's a great place to come and visit and eat and shop over that way. But we're a multi-inspector firm. Our owners are Blake and Angela Williams, and we've been building the multi-inspector firm for many years now, since I think 2014. And we're in the Dallas-Fort Worth area region and the Austin and San Antonio area, and we're just going to keep growing. So we do everything from A to Z in inspections. We don't farm anything out. All of our inspectors are licensed TREC inspectors, and then they get certified to do other types of things like termite, wood destroying insect reports, that type of thing. And so our Dallas-Fort Worth area, we cover everywhere. We kind of say we go from, Gainesville to Sherman to Waxahachie to Weatherford and everything in between there. Because, you guys nowadays, Greg, you can't just specialize in one place. If a client wants to go to Weatherford, you got to go to Weatherford, or somebody else is going to do it for them.
We're on our horse and we're going.
Yes, sir. So we really wanted to make sure that we were able to provide services, wherever our clients want to go to also.
Well, Matt, I really appreciate you taking the time to do this interview this morning.
Yeah.
Because, when people are buying their home, it's the largest investment that they make. And making sure that they're protected, that there aren't any defects that they don't know about is really, really important. So I wanted to talk about, you can buy a resale, and let's talk about the inspection that gets done on a resale. And then we'll talk about an inspection and how it gets done on a new home.
Okay. Yeah. So on a resale home, we anytime that a real estate agent that's a TREC real estate agent uses a TREC 1 to 4 residential contract, then they're required to at least suggest or provide names to a TREC licensed inspector. Okay. And so that inspector is the one who's going to be a general inspector to come out and look at that existing home for the buyer. We're representing the buyer. And what I like you said earlier about, protecting the investment, we look at it that way, is that we are blessed to be able to help people make educated decisions on the purchase of their home, depending on the condition of the home. And so we want to be the first line of defense when it comes to protecting their investment. And so we're going to look at a home, and let's talk about 6 things, okay? 6 things are really important, whether existing or new. And those 6 things are foundation and the roof and the electrical and the plumbing and the HVAC system, right? And structure is in between all of that too, because you're looking from the foundation to the roof. And then the last one is termite, right? A lot of people don't talk about that or don't think about that, but that's one of the that is so expensive across this nation of destroying homes because of infestation of termites. You always got to remember that termites are subterranean. They're always underground. They're just waiting for that opportunity to spring up and get into your house, And so when we look at the foundation, we go above and beyond what's really required of us, but we train all of our inspectors through a foundation engineering company, and they train our inspectors to measure the foundation with a zip level, just like they would. Just like foundation or surveyors or somebody else would do that, we know how to do it the same way also. because
So hold on right there, Matt,
Mhm.
because you used a term there that probably most of our audience isn't familiar with. Tell us about that zip
The
indicator,
zip level.
the
So
zip
it
level.
is an elevation detection tool that you set up in a house, and like say you find the middle of the house and you call it 0. And now
Okay.
you can measure the elevation of that house slab and find out whether or not you have high and low spots across the house itself. And that might be from one far corner to the other far corner and in between. Because in a
So
Trek,
how so let me ask you, so how do you know whether that is because, hey, maybe they poured it a little bit out of level versus whether the house is moving?
it does, and that's a great question. So in a Trek, in the Trek inspection, the inspector's required to give an opinion of the performance of the slab, right?
Okay.
Well, most inspectors only can give you an opinion by the visual signs that they see, okay? We
Okay.
back up our visual signs with actual measurements. And so this is just a tool and a stepping stone, right? It's okay, let's look at the slab. Let's look for visual signs, yes, we know that slabs can be poured brand new out of level, right? That does
Sure.
happen. And so we're going to look at signs. So we're going to measure the slab and measure the attached garage. And then we're going to be able to determine, hey, we see some high and low spots in area. And I mean, like more than a couple of inches, right? 3 or
Okay.
4 inches, something like
Okay.
that. And then we might see, oh, well, this door doesn't open properly at this corner, or this window binds when you go to open it, or we seeing diagonal cracks in the sheetrock, right, on the walls or the ceilings, or maybe on the outer part of the house, right? Or we see signs of negative drainage. And really, we know that 90% of foundations in Texas are probably due to negative drainage or environmental conditions that are not helping take care of our foundation, whether
It,
it's, the watering, like people don't water properly
mhm.
around that. They don't have gutters on their homes or something else. And the water comes back to the slab and gets under the slab, right?
So,
Create the
so you're
void.
so Matt, let me clarify that. So what you're
Yeah,
saying is when you're talking about negative drainage, you're talking about when I move away from the house, the ground is higher and it causes the water to drain back to the foundation instead of
actually.
draining
And
away, correct?
right. So when you put gutters on a home, right? And we see
Hmm.
in a lot of subdivisions now, what's in between the house is right down the middle of the fence line in between the lots. We see a swale, right?
Right,
And that
exactly.
swale is to pull or push water away from the home. The gutters are supposed to take the water off the shed off the roof, right?
Right.
Come down and shed away from the house and go to the swales, go to the curb and gutter or ditches or whatever that is. And so a lot of times when I walk to a house and I see a house without gutters, guess what? I know what's been going on with that house since brand new.
Right.
Erosion,
Right.
right? And it might be very minor or it could be major, but when you start to see where grass is not growing around the slab, the level of the soil and the sod are way below, or you can see the exposed bottom of the slab. And then when it gets, August and everything
Hmm.
gets so super hot, then you see these cracks big enough where you can put your foot in, right? And then
Right.
you could put your foot in between the slab and the ground. Well, that's probably creating a void under there too, and then that takes away the support of the slab. And that's where you can have problems at too.
I think a good example of that, Matt, is when people see, like, look at a sidewalk, and
Yeah,
you've seen this where you're walking down the sidewalk, and all of a sudden there's this big, like, hole where there's no dirt underneath of it.
that's right.
And if people have seen that, that'll give them in their mind what's happening with their foundation,
It can
because
be.
it's the
Yeah,
same kind of, that's exactly what you're talking
it is
about.
the
There's
same kind of
a
thing.
cavity
Yeah.
that's been created under the foundation, and over time,
Hmm.
that foundation's going to
Well,
fail.
and a lot of times too, when things get washed out and we see where grass is not growing, and it's around the slab areas and it's down the side of one, a wall of the house on that, and nobody's bringing backfill in, nobody's doing anything to change that environment from a negative to a positive, right? And so, or it's conducive conditions around the home. It's an older existing home, right? Built in the
Hmm.
70s and 80s. And guess where they put all the trees at? Right up by the slab, right?
Right.
And guess
Right.
what? If
The
that
roof.
tree is 30 foot high, that roots are 30 foot long,
Exactly.
right? And guess what tree roots want to find? Moisture, you know?
Correct.
And those kind of things, because like root barriers and things like that didn't come along until later on in the building industry, as far as protecting the slab, because of the problems that trees and bushes and other things like that started to cause for foundation problems.
Well, why don't we move on here?
Okay.
Because I think you have a couple other things to say here, but I
Yeah.
already see there's another episode we need to do. We need to do an episode on foundation. So
Yeah,
go
we
ahead
sure
to your
do.
next phase here, and we'll
Yeah.
move on.
Yeah. So new construction, right? So once we've looked at an existing home and all those things, cosmetic things can always get fixed, right, Greg? Somebody can put new paint on, replace, hole or fix the holes in the sheetrock, replace some trim, those type of things like that. But overall, we always want to look at what are the most expensive things, that would cost somebody to move into a home, right, and maintain a home, and how well the house is maintained. So we're just really looking at what's the condition of it. And in that report, it's going to be able to describe what those conditions are and what's deficient. If everything is good, it's going to be a short report and not a lot of pictures. If
Okay.
there's a lot of deficiencies that we find in there, then there's going to be more pictures, more pages. That's the way a report works.
So how often do you inspect the house and it's like, man, you can't buy this house. This has too many issues. How often does that happen?
We're not there to create a pass or fail. All we're
Okay.
there to do is be general in our opinion and just give that information to you guys. And that's what y'all are going to make that decision on, is look, we found out what the conditions are. There's a lot of expense to do the repairs, or, do we negotiate? Do we ask for cash back, or do we walk
Hmm.
away from it? Right.
Okay.
So if you're under the understanding, hey, this is a fixer upper, it's going to take some money to fix it, right? Then you're going to have to figure out how that negotiation is going to work and then go from that point. So if you're buying a money pit, you can't cry about it later on, you know?
Yeah.
But,
Yeah.
for most parts, I mean, most houses are generally maintained pretty well, to a point. We see neglect in a few things here and there, but then we see things that people just don't, they just don't get to see. Like nobody's going to get up on a roof and walk around a roof, right? We
Right.
do. We
Right.
get up on every roof, no matter what. If we can't get on it, we'll put a camera pole up and we'll take pictures, or we'll drone it, or do whatever we
Yeah.
need.
I,
But we,
I was wondering. I was wondering about that because
yeah,
I would think if I were doing inspections at 58, I probably don't want to get up on the roof, but you could today get a drone
yeah.
and
But we
inspect the
want to
whole
touch
thing.
it though. It's
Uh,
we want to
yeah.
be able to get on there, look at it, and really touch the roof and see what's going on.
Yeah. Because
And that's the best way to do it.
you can't tell that plywood has eroded underneath if you're doing it from a drone. You can
Yeah,
tell that.
it's hard to do
Yeah.
that. But there's some two-story houses out there that just don't have adequate access at that 16-20 foot. It's higher
Right.
and even that. And so
Right.
sometimes most inspectors don't carry a 30-foot ladder,
Right.
on
And
their
then you
on
get
their
it. Then you get a
vehicles.
12-12 pitch, and
Yeah, yeah.
unless you're a roofer, you're probably not
I
going up
tell
on
you
that.
what, I can show you some pictures from our inspectors where they've taken some of those pitches like that. It's like, woo, that is almost vertical, on
I
their
remember.
blade.
I'll tell you a quick story about that, Matt. One time I was working for a builder in our neighborhood as a young kid, and we had off this. We had 2 days off in October, and so after football practice, I run out and work for this builder. Well, he was doing a roofing job, and it was one of those old houses on the East Coast that was 3 stories and it had 12 pitches.
Yeah.
And I'm telling you, I got up on that roof and I couldn't get off that roof.
Yeah.
I thought they were going to have to call the fireman to get me down.
That's one
I found out that day that roofing wasn't my gift.
Yeah. Yeah. I understand. I've been on some before, and it's like, I am gripping it hard. I'm white knuckling it, Yeah, it's like,
Yeah.
don't look down. Don't look down. Just get get done and get off, on there too. So anyway, that's, on existing homes, that's what we're really looking at. And we are going to talk about some cosmetic things, but we really want to know what's the functionality of all the mechanical items there. Are they working properly? Are they outdated and old? We just saw a picture the other day of a water heater, and it was from 1986, still in a home.
Wow.
Right?
So it had lost its efficiency.
Well, people think about, well, you know what? It's still working. Yeah, it's
Right.
still working. But how efficient is it now? It's not. It's not.
Right.
It lost its efficiency 20 years ago,
It's costing you
compared
money
to what's
to keep
built now,
Yeah.
on there too. Okay, so let's transition over to new construction. So this new construction inspections, we call them phase inspections, okay? So I'm going to go through the first 3 phases, and then we'll talk about the 11th month warranty inspection. So the first phase is called phase 1, and that is before the slab is poured. So the form boards are up, the plastic is down, all the trenches are in, roughed in plumbing, whatever needs to be roughed in is there. The plastic barrier is down, the steel is down, it's ready to be poured, right? So we're going to show up and look at the plans, get the plans to the home, and look at the plans and make that comparison, and just make sure that the pad side is clean and ready for pour, right? Meaning that there can't be Coke cans down in the middle of the trenches, and there can't be, dirt on top of the plastic and things like that, that it's all ready for concrete to be poured. And then phase 2 is before the sheetrock goes up. So in a case where you would know this, where a house is dried in, meaning the roof is on, the shingles are on, the windows are in, doors or temporary doors are up, the electrical and HVAC plumbing's all roughed in, ready to go. And sheetrock could even be on the ground. It's just not up yet, because we want to get to it before they cover the walls, right? Because we need to see inside there to look for anything safety related, and then how everything is run and installed in there, and make sure it's ready before they cover it up with insulation and sheetrock. And then phase 3 is before your final walkthrough. So the house is complete, it's trimmed out, all the appliances are in, all the utilities are on, it's good to go, right? So we do that final phase 3. And usually that's, 4 or 5 days, a week or so before the final walkthrough in there. And then so everybody's like, yeah, it's good to go, or hey, there's a couple of things that got missed. And for the most part, builders are pretty darn good. They get their stuff done, but it's putting a set of eyes on the house. And it's not a city inspector, it's not a builder inspector, it's an inspector that's third party to all of that other construction going on. But we're looking out for the buyer, right? Hey, buyer, we found a couple of things, and we see some of the simplest things that get missed, and thank goodness we catch them before they move in. And then after that, so most builders provide a 1-year warranty, on the home. And so what we do is a 11th month warranty inspection. So 10 or 11 months you've been in the house, you call us up, we come out, and we just do a full-blown inspection from top to bottom, inside and out. We measure the slab. And by the way, every time we go to a phase inspection, we measure the slab. So we know right off the bat that it's poured, even and level, or it's not,
So it's almost like going to the doctor and you get you get a basis for things.
Yeah.
So now,
right. Yeah,
10 years down the road, when something happens, you go, oh, that's not right, because we have a basis.
Yeah.
You think about like kids today that are playing football, they go get a brain evaluation before they start, so that if they get a concussion, they can see and evaluate what's going on. And that's really what you're talking about
Yeah,
there.
that's
So now you have
exactly what it
you
is.
have a basis.
Yeah, we have a basis, and that's really good, especially here in Texas. If we are going to have any movement with our slab or anything else, is it out of a line or not? Because even if there's a difference in a couple of inches, that doesn't mean that it's not normal, right? Things are
Right,
going to
right.
move and shift. I mean, we have caliche soil around here in most places, you know, and that's what happens when it contracts and it expands.
And you know, that is really, really important because I think in Texas, one of the most expensive things to diagnose and to fix are foundations. So if you end up in year 5 with a foundation issue as a homeowner,
Mhm.
you're probably not getting out of that cheap because they've got to put in piers. It's the disruption to your life as well. I know I've done a couple of rehabs down here in Texas and had to do extensive foundation, and I can't imagine if somebody was living in that house because we destroyed the inside of the house. And now in my case, it didn't really matter
Yeah,
because we were going to rehab it anyway, and we were
yeah,
going to,
right. Here's
tear
a
it all apart
shell.
anyway. But
Yeah,
if,
yeah,
yeah, but if somebody was living in that house,
yeah.
oh my gosh, it would have completely disrupted their
Oh,
lives.
I used to work in foundation back in my younger days for Cornerstone Foundation out of Addison, right? And I was the
Mm.
guy running the crews doing that, you know.
Right,
But
right.
my suggestion always is to your audience is hire a foundation engineer first and let them do a report on the slab and let them dictate to the foundation company where the piers need to be if there's any repairs that need to be done.
Gotcha.
It's gonna,
Okay.
even though you have to pay for that report from the engineer, it's still gonna save you money over the overall repairs if piers are needing to be installed. So then you have
Okay.
a report from the engineer before and after, and you have a warranty from the foundation company, you know? So when you go to
Okay.
sell it, you've got all of that documentation
Right.
to be able to share and make sure that people feel more comfortable about it. Because it's like when you know that something's had foundation repair or it has had foundation issues, what people want to do is they want to back up, right? They're not too
Right.
sure about it. It's a fear factor. It's the same thing with having a flood zone on your property or around your house. It's the same thing. People back up.
Right.
They don't want to be a part of that if they don't have to be. Why is it such a good deal? Well,
Yeah.
you know, sometimes that's what it is.
You got a good chance that you're going to get flooded out. That's
Well,
why it's a good deal.
you could. And by the way, just let everybody know that the government has extended the NFIP flood National Flood Insurance Program until September 2021. So we're good to
Okay.
go for another
Okay.
year. We're good to go
Okay.
on that. But anyway,
So,
that's kind of the whole kit and caboodle for the inspections and the phase inspections.
so
And
what, go back to one of the advantages of buying new is that when you go in to do that inspection, you see that the installation's been installed properly. You're obviously looking at the electrical system to make sure
mhm,
that it's been installed
mhm,
properly, and the plumbing has been installed properly, and that the framing's been installed properly per the plans.
yeah,
The county or the city is looking at it from their perspective, and that inspector's doing 20, 30 inspections a day. So
mhm,
he's not looking at it that thoroughly.
mhm,
He's not really uh, worried about you that much because in the end, if there's something happens, they're going to say, hey, that's between you and your builder, and they're going to walk away.
yep.
So I think, or not, I don't think, I know it's important that if you're making a $300,000 investment or a 500,000 or $1 million investment, it doesn't really matter. It costs you extra money to get that pre-drywall inspection, but it's well worth the money because you're talking about hundreds of dollars versus a 500,000 or a 300,000 or $1 million,
Yeah.
investment.
Right. Well, speaking of insulation, we use a thermal camera in our inspections and we
Okay.
use it throughout the whole house on the electrical, the HVAC system, look for cold and hot spots, looking for water penetration, that type of stuff. But when we have the temperatures, a good differential temperature where it's, 90 degrees outside and 70 degrees on the inside, we can
Hmm.
really see in the ceilings and the walls, and we can tell when insulation is missing. And it's amazing that we find these ceilings with a lot of insulation missing. And we've seen them where it's been a whole room, could be 3/4 of the room missing insulation. And just think that those people have been living in that house all that time and paying that electricity bill or that utility bill, not ever even knowing that that insulation was missing out of there. And what would have made a change in their utility costs if they had only had adequate insulation in it from the get-go?
Yeah, and I'll give you an example of that, Matt. I had built a house in the 90s, and it was one of these. It was an East Coast house, and it was one of these really complicated framed houses. And so when we, all of a sudden the people had been in the house for a year, I don't know, over a year, and they could not get the master bedroom in the wintertime. They couldn't get it above 65.
Oh my
And
goodness.
and so they were all constantly cold.
Yeah.
So we ended up having a special company come out, and they did this negative, I don't know, negative infrared test.
Hmm.
And when they did that, they found out that there was this section where these roofs kind of overlapped each other, and somehow the insulation company missed putting the insulation in there.
Hmm.
The county inspector missed that there wasn't insulation in there, and we as the builder missed that there
Hmm.
wasn't insulation.
Yep.
So we then, we got the insulation put in, and everything was fine after
Yeah.
that. But
We find that a
these
lot
things happen.
in
Yeah,
master bedrooms, Greg. We see that a
yeah,
lot where the master bedroom is closed off to that area,
mhm.
and up in the attic, it's sheetrocked off, right?
Right,
So if
right.
they didn't spray in there or if it already got closed off, the insulation guys
Interfered.
missed it,
Right,
and
right.
that kind of stuff happens, on there too. But using that thermal camera is a great way. It's a great tool, right? As long as you know how to use it properly, right? That it will really bring things to light. Whether something's missing or not when it comes to like
Hmm.
insulation and temperatures on there too. And we find, like I see in your picture now, I can see your vent register in the ceiling, right?
Right.
We found places in homes where we'll see this blue-green spot up in the ceiling. There's nothing there. It's just blue and green. Guess what it
Uh,
was? It was air conditioning duct running to the sheetrock for a
right.
register, and there was never a register vent installed. So it's just been
Wow.
blowing into the sheetrock and
Right.
in the attic all that time, you
Right.
know? And people are just amazed that you find something like that. How could have that been missed? It gets covered up and nobody goes back and checks it out, makes
Let,
it
let
count.
me let me ask you another question, and I know we're running to the end of our session here. I know you got a lot of stuff to do, so I don't want to hold you up. But um, let's say that somebody is getting a pool built at the same time that they're getting their house built. Obviously, you want to do an inspection on that pool too. So that's going to be an additional cost. But do
Mhm.
you guys do those inspections
We
as
do
well?
pool and spa. Yes, sir. We sure do. And matter of
Okay.
fact, just to
Okay.
give you and your audience information too, is we've tried to create every type of tutorial video that we can make that has related to what we do in inspections. And if you go to our YouTube channel called Super Inspector, you can watch all those videos there for free. And if you want to know about what we do with pool and spa, there's a video about that. If you want to know what we do for foundation or phase inspections or septic or water well or termite, they're all on there. And then we have a lot of red flag series videos too, just to kind of give you guys an update and heads up to when you go look at a house, whether you're going to purchase or when you're going to get ready to sell, what are the tattletale signs that you can see that maybe it's something you need to take a look at and then investigate.
Well, Matt, thanks for doing this today. I think
Yeah.
it was very productive. I think it'll be very productive for my clients to understand the inspection process. And certainly, I want to tell everybody that, hey, if if you're looking for an inspector, Matt would be a great guy to reach out to, and they've got a lot of times you can get one individual inspector, but they actually have a company. And
Yeah.
when you have a company, you have systems in place and you have things that make sure that every inspection happens the way that it's supposed to happen. And I think that's what super inspectors has done is they've set this thing up so that they've got great systems in place.
Yeah, and as a
So
matter of fact, Greg, I'd like to be able to share, and I'm going to share with Greg today, but we have e-brochures for new construction, and it tells you all about the phase inspections. We have e-brochures for people who are going to sell their house, and it'll give you guidelines of how to get your house prepared for an inspection. Because as you know, and Greg knows this, that houses in the right price and the right location are selling fast, and you need to be prepared for the inspector to show up. And then also we'll share a e-brochure on repair cost guides. So it'll just give you general numbers of what repairs would actually cost if you had to get something fixed. So I'll be able to share that with you. And if you guys just leave a comment below this video on any of the social media that we put this on, then Greg will be happy to send that to you.
yeah. Well, thank you, Matt. It was really good catching up today, and
Yeah, Greg.
I think we now have another video we need to do on foundations.
I think so
So
too. We'd be happy to do that anytime.
okay,
You bet. We'll make that number 2.
okay, we'll do it soon.
Episode number 2. Yeah, we look
Exactly,
forward to it. Have
exactly.
a great
Okay,
weekend.
thank you. You too, Matt.
Okay.